Today, I have the pleasure of being here with Barbara Seymour Giordano. She's an expert in storytelling and public speaking. So let me give you a little bit of background about her. As a speechwriter and presentation coach, Barbara has advised Fortune 500 executives, entrepreneurs, and TED presenters on the art of creating global talks that unite, influences, and inspires audiences worldwide. In her career, Barbara has worked as an assignment editor with CNN and E! Entertainment Television, as well as produced internal videos, global sales meetings, and events for Amgen, Cisco Systems, and Nike, to name a few. In front of the lens, Barbara has been an on-camera national TV fashion and beauty spokesperson for Land's End, Neiman Marcus, and TJX Corporation. With an uncanny knack for turning highly complex subjects into stories that spark imagination across cultures, Barbara helps her presenters get to the heart of the story, the meaningful gift that inspires audiences to action. So welcome, Barbara. I'm so excited to be here with you today. How are you?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm good.
Aw, thanks for having me.
Oh gosh, thanks so much for being here. So let's just get right into this. You know, it's so interesting because one of the things that I think most everyone realizes or has heard of is that people fear public speaking more than they do death. And why is that?
Well, as Jerry Seinfeld has been quoted saying, I'd rather give the eulogy. No, I'd rather be in the coffin than give the eulogy, right? So, and maybe that's my slip up. I'd rather give the eulogy than be in the coffin. But the reality is that a lot of my speakers will say to me, oh my gosh, Barbara, I can't do this. And they have secret wishes. I've had quite a few speakers just like days before they're going to deliver. I hope that I get in a car accident. I mean, I'm not hurt or anything, but my car can't move, and then I don't have to give the speech. I'll have to be towed away, and there's no way I can make it. Especially with TED Talks. There's a lot of pressure around TED Talks. But the reason for all that, there's only one reason, and that is ego. Yeah, that's crazy, right?
That is.
But it is the one thing that prevents us from moving forward, because why our ego? What's our ego saying to us? It's worried that we're going to say something stupid. We're going to do something stupid. We're going to look foolish, that others will have bad thoughts about us. This is part of human nature. This is part of what you have to get over as you do anything new, because we don't start out as masters at anything that we do. We just throw ourselves into it and expect that it's going to be bumpy if we have the courage to throw ourselves into it. So that's why public speaking is feared more than death, because the reality is that people don't want to look bad. They don't want to look foolish. They don't want to look less than. And as we get older, it's more important than ever to put ourselves in situations where we can act foolish, where we can look foolish and not worry about it. That's part of the growth. And public speaking builds confidence like nothing else that I've ever seen, because you really have to get past all that ego nonsense. And it's a great way to grow and build courage.
Yeah, I love how you just really honed in on the root cause of why people do fear public speaking more than death. And what suggestions do you have for people to get past their ego so that they can start to get out there and speak and grow at the same time?
Well, for me, one of the things that I tell my speakers, and I work with two different groups of speakers. I work with speakers that give keynote speeches. So we work on the story from the page to the stage. I take them from the page to the stage, so we write it all out together and they get up and they speak. And I work with also entrepreneurs on pitching their startup ideas to investors. And especially with both, but especially with the entrepreneurs, the important part for them is because their speeches are 10 minutes long at most. I have them take parts of their pitch and just go out and randomly practice on whoever. Who's your neighbor? Go knock on their door. Practice. Somebody in line at Pete's Coffee. Go talk to them. And just practice, practice, practice. Because by doing so, even if it isn't rehearsed, anything that takes us out of our comfort zone, we get feedback from. We can see in other people's energy, in their eyes, in their body language, in their energy with us, whether or not they think that we're crazy, which is also very good. I think that's a positive thing. Or they think that, like, wow, they take us seriously. We're going to learn something from that interaction. So I have all my speakers go out into the world, and either, if it's a long speech, practice in front of a spouse or significant other, and or if it's a shorter speech, to go out into the world and just see what works. Do your own beta testing, so to speak, right?
Yeah, I really love that because, what I'm getting that you're saying is that this is something that in order for us to move past it, we've got to get out there and practice it. It's not something that we can do just sitting at home and like breathing through it or like visualizing, but it's actually in the action of it is what expands our comfort zone and then builds our confidence.
Yes, absolutely. And I heard something beautiful the other day. Someone said, we only grow in relation to one another. So in relationship, right? That's the only time we grow. They say, there's a wonderful saying, and I'm probably going to totally mess this up, but the gist of it is, when you think that you are enlightened, meaning that you are calm in the space of everyone, just go home and visit your family for a week. And you'll learn how you need to continue to learn till the last breath, right?
Right.
Because it's really how we live in relation. We don't know what our own hot buttons are until we go out into the world and have people press those hot buttons. And those hot buttons are a gift to us to say, ooh, there's an area that I need to work on. It's a gift.
Yeah. Thank you so much. I really love the simplicity of what you've shared as far as going out there and practicing. I think that's a very actionable step that people can put into practice. So I think what would be really helpful is to really delve into the benefits of public speaking. As far as, because like you're in the trenches, working with clients and then also yourself out there, you have probably a lot of depth when it comes to looking at what the benefits are. And I'd love for you to share that with us.
Thank you. Well, yes. So having the opportunity to speak in public is such a gift. First of all, I liken it when I work with my speakers, I say it's like climbing Mount Everest, right? Every time you give a speech, it's the opportunity to stop down and give thanks to the world, to say, this is where I am, whether it's the project you're working on or the story that you're telling, you're paying homage, you're giving homage to where you have been. And so essentially, as you work on the speech, you're climbing up the base camps, and maybe you're working on a project and you give that speech at base camp 1. A year later, you give it at base camp 2, but you keep moving up the mountain. And getting to those base camps, you stop and you're like, you climb, you get to the base camp, finally we can rest, but you turn around and you look out and you see the view from Mount Everest, right? And you look around, you go, it is so beautiful. Look at that. And that's what giving a speech is. You give thanks to where you are in this moment. But then you look up the mountain, you go, oh my gosh, look at how many more base camps I have to go. And it's humbling. And so you learn giving a speech, even though you're talking about different times and places, gives you the opportunity to be in the here and now. And when you give a speech, being fully present in the here and now is the way that you connect with your audience. Most of the time we're living in the past or we're talking about the future, but rarely are we feeling the feelings of this moment, right? And that's fundamentally huge. So when we have the opportunity to give a speech, we are reconnecting with being fully present. And that gives us a sense of peace. And that's priceless because most of the time we're running around, like a chicken with their head cut off, trying to get deadlines done and getting things done. Having that sense of peace makes us feel happier. Our audience is starved for it. As I say to my audiences or to my speakers, emotions are in high demand for an audience, but short supply. Rarely do speakers really ever have the courage to tap into what it is that they're feeling and to share their struggles. So by starting to do up there, I don't mean getting up and sharing your deepest, darkest secrets, but as you're maybe going along and doing a project saying, hey, and this is where I tripped up. And then others, your audience will have the courage to express that they tripped up too. This is the beauty of communication. When we share our potential frailties, shall we say, our vulnerabilities, then the audience will say, oh, they reciprocate, they feel it. And you're going to attract a whole new audience member that will come to you because you gave a talk, not as the all-knowing and omnipotent, but as the one that said, I'm human like you. And your audience will grow. Whether that's an audience of one, let's say it's a personal relationship that you have, you're going to let someone in and you're going to now have a relationship in a whole new way because you are not putting it on them. And so by doing all of these things in front of an audience, it's very cathartic and it takes a lot of courage. But I don't mean courage in the sense of like, you're going to lose your life, even though it might feel like it. Your heart's racing and you're sweating. I'm not going to say that's not going to happen. But every time you get up to speak, it gets a little smaller, the freakouts and the I need a brown paper bag moments, right? And as that diminishes, your confidence increases. They're directly proportional. And that basically spills over into the rest of your life. That will, the level of confidence that it builds is incredible. So it's the opportunity to really get in touch with yourself and find your own love and what you love, and then your audience will too. You'll connect with your audience in a new way.
So that is really profound because, well, I have a couple of questions that came up, from what you asked, but it really is about being authentically ourselves when we're in front of people and being okay to share things that are a little bit more personal.
Yes, exactly. But they're more about vulnerabilities in ways to clarify that, right? You don't want to have to say, some of your deepest, darkest secrets to the audience. That's probably TMI, as they would say, right? But to say in the context of a story that, I thought I was all that, as I like to tell my speakers, okay, we're going to start this story in terms of you fell off your high horse. And what was that moment where you thought you were all that and that you were going to change the world, and then boom, something came and knocked you off your very high horse. And when you fell, it hurt. And then that helps to tell the story in a new way, because that levels a playing field that right from the beginning of the story tells the audience, oh, this person, I thought they were going to tell me how great they were their whole speech, but right off the bat they told me, oh, wait a minute, I've had those moments too where I thought I was all that, and then boom, something knocked me off my high horse and leveled me and said, okay, well, I need some humility here. And that humility is where we connect with other people.
So it's really fascinating because in the corporate world, as an example, right, we feel like we have to put on a certain mask, like we can't really let ourselves be vulnerable, or it may be perceived as weak. So in the context of a presentation where somebody is having to speak in front of their peers and even upper management, let's say, Is there a way to be able to be a little bit more vulnerable, more open, so that you can connect with them in still a professional way? And what would that look like?
The best way to connect with your audience is to be way more conversational in a way that you would be talking about. I'm trying to think of a situation. For instance, one of my clients works for a medical device company, and they hire a lot of engineers. And those engineers are the ones to go sell the medical devices, right? And they sell them to doctors, okay? Which is wonderful until the engineer starts talking about all of the fabulous features of the device. But the doctor doesn't care about the device. You ready for that? Why doesn't the doctor care about the device? The doctor doesn't care about the device. They only care about how the device is going to be better, faster, cheaper for their patients. Okay?
Right.
And so what happens is we have a disconnect between the engineer and what they think is cool, and the doctor and what their needs are for the patient. Better, faster, cheaper for their patient. That's what they care about. And for them to be able to, input it and all those things. So I say that because it means you need to know your audience. Who are they? What is it that they need? Because if an engineer is talking about all the features they think are cool, but the doctor doesn't care about it, you're having crosstalk. And you're not going to be able to connect with your audience. So what does your audience need? Who are they? And are you them? A lot of times we are our own audience, right? And when we talk from a place of mutual understanding, from our common humanity, what makes us human? What do you love? Do you love food, Janet?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, me too. Okay? And if we tell a little story about ourselves in the context of whatever we're talking about, a slight digression, I love chocolate, or when I made those chocolate chip cookies, or whatever it is, it's pretty guaranteed that most people, have a hobby they love, they have food that they love, they have pets that they love. There's something that they love that can be brought into the story that you're telling. It doesn't have to be all business. But then they get to know you. They're like, oh, I had no idea that you loved raspberries. I love raspberries too, right? And you just don't know what it is that's going to connect with your audience, but they're starved for it because so many times we're presenting from our brain, and we need to start presenting from our hearts. It's time to start thinking less and feeling more. And that's what your audience is starved for. Like I said earlier, emotions are in high demand and short supply. So give it to them. Who are you? Show us.
Right, right. And I think one of the pieces that you had mentioned earlier was a lot of times we are in our minds and not being present to the audience during our speech, right? So in the present moment is where we can better connect with people. And I'm wondering what suggestions you have for us to be able to be more present when we are in a situation where we're in front of a group of people, or even if we're just one-on-one, but just to be able to drop into the moment and speak from there.
The one thing that will ground you every time, it takes practice, but it can be done, is to remember to breathe. But so many of us are running around like holding our breaths. I work at my office right here, and I'm constantly on video chat, and I'm leaning in, and I'm all of a sudden like, why am I so tight? My neck is stiff, everything about me. And then I realize I'm not breathing. That means I'm so engrossed in what I'm doing, but the breath is going to help me be more creative. So that breath is grounding. And that's ultimately what we're looking for, is to just keep breathing and then to have faith that it's all going to work out.
Love that. Yeah. And everyone can breathe. So we can all do
that. not a good sign. We go
Right,
back to
right.
the Seinfeld quote at the beginning, right?
Right. So what I really love about you is you're so masterful at storytelling. And I'm wondering, why is story so important in business and also in our lives?
Story is the oldest form of communication on the planet across cultures. So wherever you go in the world, story has existed to travel down through the generations, right? To keep ideas and cultures and cultural beliefs alive, right? So they get passed down from generation to generation. And how deep they are is becoming more clear than ever. So, or more evident, I should say. May I share a quick story with you?
Oh yeah, go ahead.
So recently I gave my stepson and my husband a 23andMe DNA kit. Okay.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden my stepson was like, I don't know, I really wanted this gift, but then what if, because my husband's family is from Argentina. And my husband, as far back as he can go in history, his family history, is Italian. And for all of his years on this planet, he's run around saying, I'm 100% Italian. I'm 100% Italian. And so my stepson's doing the same thing. I'm 100% Italian. I'm 100% Italian. So cut to the test results come back. And they first read, they get their results back, and we're talking about them, we're discussing them. And Luis gets 33% Italian in his DNA. Most everything else is like Western European. Hilarious, right? So my stepson with his mom, so now you have the whole family tree together, he's like 38% Italian because his mom's Italian. She's been telling everybody, I'm 100% Italian. So all of a sudden you see how powerful it is. Whether or not it's true, if you believe it's true, it's true. So you have to really understand the reasons why you're sharing the stories, right? If you don't, you run around all your life, like my husband, going, I'm 100% Italian. And now having to, deal with it. And as my stepson said, oh my gosh, all these years, because my stepson's Argentinian as well, and they like to make the brunt of the jokes in their world are Spaniards. He goes, I've been making all these jokes about Spaniards and I'm like 30% Iberian. So that's the power of story.
So what I'm hearing, and actually that's so funny, what I'm hearing is that we believe so much the stories that we tell ourselves. And then from our beliefs about our stories, as we're communicating to other people, it can change actually based on what we were telling ourselves maybe versus like what actually is. Is that?
Well, yeah, it's a couple of things, right? You've got one, the power of story that gets passed down through the generations. Well, we think of our generations, like how far, we can only think back a few generations, right?
Right.
My husband, he's a perfect example, the 100% Italian guy. He can trace his roots all the way back. He's like third generation Italian, Argentinian. But then he's got, they can go back a few generations to northern Italy where his family was from, right? So then you think, 100% Italian, how? Of course, right? So you believe that story because that's the power of it. It was passed through the generations. So that's one point. But then science comes in and tells you something different. Now who am I without that story, right? So the point of telling a story is to say the power of story is one. The second is that we outgrow stories. So the story you told at 20 isn't going to be the story if you tell that story again at 30, it's going to be different. If you tell it again at 40, it's going to be different at 50 and so on, because you will have matured that story does not stay the same. If it does, you might want to go get some psychiatric help. You know what I mean? I'm making a joke, but you do want to reach out to somebody because it means that you're stuck in that belief, right? Because the further we get away from something, the more we should have matured to look back at that story if it's a personal story.
Right, right.
There's wisdom and reflection in it.
Yeah, and it's so powerful, Barbara, because a lot of times we're still living from a story that we told ourselves, 10 years ago. And, now we're a different person. And so it's so disempowering to be living from this old story that maybe at the time that was who we were. And then now we've grown, we've changed, and we really need to tell ourselves a better story that's more empowering to where we are now and also where we'd like to go.
Absolutely, Janet. I mean, that is so accurate. And in fact, one of the things I read the other day to support that is just the fact that a lot of our beliefs are formed in childhood. Right? And they're protection mechanisms. So maybe your parents didn't have such a great marriage. So at 9 years old, you say, I'm never going to have a marriage like that. But then you wake up one day and you're 30, 35, 40, and you're like, why do I still have this belief that marriage is bad or marriage is confining or whatever the beliefs are that I have? And by the way, I have those beliefs. So my 9-year-old self was walking around in my 20s and my 30s ruling my planets around relationships, right? And that limited me because I never questioned my 9-year-old decisions. And so I think we need to sift through our decisions or what we believe to be true. And story is a wonderful way to do that, to share those stories and have some question those stories. Whether that's, however you choose. That could be a partner who you have confidence with, a best friend. It can be however but to question always our stories. And in fact, a lot of the speakers they come to me from an academic mindset. We're trained to show, or going back to kind of the workplace, we're trained from the minute we graduate from high school, actually in high school, to show our knowledge, not to show our feelings.
Right.
That's not helping us in our relationships, our one-on-one relationships either, right? Because
Right.
there's no way to really be human. We're not just our minds. Our logic, you can wrap your arms around emotions, but you can't wrap it around rationality. It just doesn't work that way.
Right. Yeah. I really love that. And I'm thinking about a little bit ago, we were talking about the importance of stories and living from a more empowering story versus one that was years ago. Do you have suggestions for how we can start to create more empowering stories that are better supportive of who we've become and where it is that we're wanting to go?
The best thing to do is just start writing it out. Whatever story you think you suspect you might be stuck on, like if it's one that keeps repeating itself, what is it? What is it? Something persists. If we don't, what
we resist persists.
Yeah, what we resist persists. Yeah, tell me about it. The universe gets louder and louder and louder until we pay attention, right? So the best thing we can do is write it out and then share it with someone. Have the courage to read it to somebody who is a non-judgmental, impartial friend or family member, and to get their feedback and to say, is that who I am? Is that where I am? Because sometimes we're so clouded and confused by what our beliefs are and it's scary. I'm not going to lie. To let go of your beliefs, that's like, was it Pigpen in Charlie Brown that had the security blanket?
Yes.
Like your security blanket, right?
Right.
You don't really realize it until you let it go. And then once you let it go, there's actually a lot of loss there too, because why didn't I let it go sooner? right? And so the thing is that being able to let go of that story will free you. So the best way to do it is just keep writing it down. And then once you've written it down and you've shared it, I would wait a few months, write it again, and share it in a new way. Don't write it right away. Give yourself some time to just sort of let the dust settle, right? Because you've totally gotten the waters muddied up. Let them settle down, and then do it again, and then do it again until it gets smaller and smaller and smaller, and let it go. And then let it be. Have a little lighting ceremony for the first one that you wrote. She doesn't need to be here anymore. Let it, burn it up.
Yeah.
Rituals are really important, and the writing and getting it out of you will get it out of your head.
I think that's such a wonderful way to approach that, because with each writing and then like the burning of the story, you feel lighter and lighter until all of a sudden you have more of the space to really live into that empowering story that you're wanting. So yeah, that is a great tip. Thank you so much for that.
Okay.
And the other thing that I'm wondering is, when we do deliver a presentation, what does the audience learn about us beyond the content that we're talking about?
This is wonderful, because when you have the opportunity to chat with an audience, it's just an extended one-on-one conversation, right? Except they don't usually respond back, or sometimes it's dynamic and there'll be questions asked and things. But what happens is, having watched so many speakers, you start to learn about that person really fast. There was a study that was done once, and I don't remember the details exactly, but essentially they gave a test group of students. They had them watch a professor or take the professor's class all semester long. Then they gave another control group 5 minutes of video with sound. And then they gave another control group 30 seconds, I think it was, with no sound. And then they had them rate the professor, same professor in all the videos, right? And then they had them rate the professor and write what they thought about the professor. And do you know, I'll be darned if those 3 control groups almost didn't come up with the same evaluations of that professor. So I say that because that's how fast we make an impression on the audience, right? And so if we're having fun, and that's the one element I tell all my speakers, if you have fun, the audience will too, right? Fundamentally, you can't ask for more than that, because how many people are really having fun at work? No, they got that kind of the German mindset, and my mom's of German descent.
Yeah.
Let's get it done. All right, troops, let's get it together. 1, 2, 3, right?
Right.
Fun. So when you actually get the opportunity to go share stories, and you know what, how lucky we are to do what we do. How many of us give thanks at work and really say, wow, these speeches are the opportunity to get up there and, share that love, and then give love to others that need it in the audience. So I digressed and I went off somewhere else, Janet. Where did I go? What was
That's awesome. So let's see here. Okay, so I was wondering, when we are giving a presentation and the audience is there, what is it that they're learning about us, besides the information that we're sharing?
Yes. So they're also learning about how we feel about the topic that we're talking about. Every single slide, if you're using slides, I can tell when my speakers hate a slide. Oh God, I just have to get over that one. Let me just get past that one. Or they love a slide because they'll wax on forever about it, right? I can tell if they love what they do. I can tell if their leadership abilities. How are they carrying themselves? I can tell if they take their presentation seriously. Did they do their homework? Is it conversational? Is it fluid? Most speakers don't when I see them. They just get up and present. It's monkey see, monkey do, right? Well, Fred over in counting, I just copied him, and they tell the stories in a way, and a lot of it's for time crunch reasons. They don't put a lot of value in the opportunity to get up and speak and share stories. They just go, I have to get this done. It's kind of like flossing. Okay, let me do this. Okay. And they don't put the love and attention that deserves. And in fact, studies have shown if you do put the love and attention in your communication skills, whether that's you getting up in front of an audience or your one-on-one, both together, you're going to move up the ladder a lot faster. And probably you'll be inspired to go off and start your own company. Really, because then you start to realize, wait a minute, if I'm having fun, I could spread that fun all around. So we as an audience learn a lot about how seriously you take your job. If you are destined for greater things than where you are, if you love what you do you share that love? And we feel all that how are your leadership skills? And we learn your commitment to your job. So there's a lot of variables that we as the audience feel and that we need to see. But it is one of the fastest ways to move up in a company is to be an accomplished speaker, because there are so few.
Wow. It's everything that you said about what the audience is learning about you. I've felt those things, but I've never been able to put it into words like that. And it makes me realize that there are so many nuances to public speaking that we really don't realize. I mean, the average person, right, who does need to give presentations, but also feels like, well, I just need to share this information and then move on with something else. So this is such a bigger topic, Barbara, and there's a couple of things. I guess the first is that, like, if somebody is wanting to really improve their storytelling abilities and their speaking skills, what is it that, and they feel like they need some help, right? What is it that they should be looking for when they're hiring a speechwriter or somebody else in that realm?
Excellent. Well, when they're looking for a speechwriter, if they're at that level, then they definitely need to look for someone who they know their work, they can see their work, because a lot of times people will say that they're speechwriters, but they came over from another occupation and like, I can write. But they really need to be able to tell a story that's moving and compelling, and that they understand the different nuances of the story from beginning to end, because there's dare I say it, a formula, but that's to dumb it down, not really what it is. It's like music, it's like a feeling. Yes, there are confines to a great story, but you have to know where the notes go, right, in between. So you need to work with somebody that you're really compatible with and that also wants to have fun, because it's, how lucky I am to do what I do. So and you have to also know that this is not, working with a speechwriter and taking your story from the page to the stage is not for the faint of heart. It takes a lot of work, because you've got to get to the story first, and then you have to kind of deconstruct it and then reconstruct it in a way that the audience is going to really want to go. So through that, when you work with a speechwriter, there are a lot of benefits, because you as a speaker learn if you're coachable or not. And coachability is basically, is my ego in check, right? Can I take this feedback? And you work through with some speechwriters just write. Very few of us write, help you build your slides. I'm one of those, and then take you to the stage and help you with the presentation skills. So that's working with me is something that's longer. But once you do it once, you get the idea of it. My goal for my speakers is to work with me a couple of times, but then to eventually fly a little bird, because you'll get the rhythm. If you enjoy it, you won't always need to have me, depending on the level that you are and what type of job you have, right? If you're more of an entrepreneur, that's what I hope for you. If you're more of an executive, you may need to have somebody like me working with you over time. And for executives, I would say that you would need to be prepared to have the courage to open up and be vulnerable. That is the fastest way to inspire your audience. So that's what I would say. If you're at a lower level and you're like, Barbara, but I can't afford a speechwriter, then I would say definitely check out a Toastmasters club. Right, Janet?
Right.
Because you and I met at Toastmasters.
Right.
And one of my best experiences and my best gifts that came with me.
Aw, mine too.
And so, and that was wonderful, on so many levels, because it's a muscle that we worked out every week, right?
Right.
We got to stand up and do either give a speech or just take on a role where we got to talk to people. So I would recommend a Toastmasters, and the internet is full of, if you go to my website, storyworksla.com, I have quite a few videos on the art of public speaking there. You can check it out and learn a lot more about story. But yes, so those are the things I would say. If you are at the level that you need a speechwriter, I highly recommend it. Definitely there's me, but there's a lot of other people out there too. And then, if you are at a different level, I would suggest a Toastmasters and videos online. So, yeah.
Barbara?
Yes.
Okay, sorry. It looks like our internet connection cut out for a little bit.
Oh.
So I'm sorry. I didn't catch that last part.
Oh, it was so good too.
Do you mind sharing? The last part I heard was if you're at a different level.
Right. If you're at a different level, definitely go, if you're maybe not at an executive level where you would have, your company pay for it, then I would definitely go to check out a Toastmasters near you. You can just go to their website and you get a great workout there. But then also to check out videos and such online. There's a ton of them. And on my website, storyworksla.com, there's also quite a few videos that you can check out to learn more about how to become a better storyteller.
Thank you so much, Barbara. You just shared some wonderful nuggets throughout our whole time together, and I really appreciate that. I'm wondering if you were to let us know like one action step that we can start taking to become better presenters, better storytellers, what would that be?
Man. One, Janet?
Okay, if you have more than one, that's
okay.
Too.
No, the one that I would say is to, well, the three that I'll just recap really, right? Remember to breathe, because if you don't breathe, you can't smile. And if you can't smile, how will they know you're having fun? So number one is breathe, okay? Number two is be vulnerable. Show them that somewhere along the line, you've taken a misstep too. It doesn't have to be major. You're not revealing anything, but you're saying, holy cow, I thought I was all that until this happened, And then the audience will like you even more because they'll say, you know what? That Janet, she's human just like me, right?
Right.
And that builds, that inspires that connection. We feel inspired to want to know you more. And that's the ultimate goal. And then finally, to have fun. Just if you're having fun, you're the epicenter of the emotions. If you feel emotions, we will too. A great talk isn't about thinking. That's why we write it out, because when we write it out, all the emotions are on the page, and then I can help my speakers feel those emotions, right? So then that's what you do, is you write it out so you know where you're going from beginning to end, but you make it sound like a conversation, and you make it sound spontaneous, and you have fun. Share that love. We need more love sent out in the world.
Oh, I love that. Oh, thank you so much, Barbara.
Thank you, Janet. This was fun.
Yeah, I really appreciate you sharing your wisdom with everybody. And I'll be talking to you soon.
Yes, you will.
Yes. Okay.
My pleasure, Janet.
Take
Have a
care.
good rest of your day.
You too.